Wolf, get away from those sheep.
Bollocks.
You're listening to the Wolf and the Shepherd podcast, broadcasting from Fort Worth in the great state of Texas. Now, get ready for this episode of the Wolf and the Shepherd.
Welcome to this episode of the Wolf and the Shepherd. Today, we're going to be discussing vacations. Now, just so we're all clear, the Wolf and I just got back from vacation and, we're trying to catch up on all the stuff that we're behind on, especially, recording podcasts, all that good stuff. And we decided, there's this, kind of bizarre thing with vacations. And now that we just both got off of vacations, we said, this is a topic we kind of need to broach. We need to talk a little bit about vacations, kind of some good vacations we've been on, and honestly, how ridiculous some vacations kind of are.
Yeah, I was hoping we could use this podcast as clickbait, really. So I think you have to have the title as Vacation Recommendations.
Oh,
so people click on it, look for a recommendation. There aren't any.
Yes.
But we still get the hit.
Well, our recommendation would be just don't do it.
Just go somewhere, see if you like it. If you like it, keep it to yourself. Don't bother posting it on Facebook. Nobody cares.
Right. Because really, nobody cares.
Nobody
to
cares.
See your pictures on your vacations. Like, I don't really like you that much. That's why we're friends on Facebook and we're not real friends in real life. And that's why I'm not on the vacation with you. And now you're taking these pictures on your vacation that I didn't want to be with you anyway. And I don't really care that you're there, and I'm happy that you spent a lot of money that I didn't have to spend to be on that vacation with you.
Yeah. Now, I did actually post on Facebook about 40 photos of my vacation last week in Colorado with my girlfriend, but that was from the benefit of my English relatives, because they're just not used to seeing the sun. So every now and then I like to post photos with the sun in the background, and they just kind of look at the picture, just imagine what it would be like to have the sun out in the sky.
Well, not only that, but there's no mountains in England.
There are.
Oh.
Up north.
Yeah, but that's
somewhere called the Peak District.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mountains in Scotland is quite mountainy.
Well, yeah, Scotland.
A little bit as well.
Scotland, yeah, I can picture some mountains up there.
Yeah.
That's why they call it the Highlands or whatever up there, right?
Yeah, I think. Well. Yeah, maybe.
Oh, okay. But I didn't know there were any mountains in England.
Oh, yeah. So there's somewhere called the Peak District. Now, you have to remember, this was relative to anything else which might be described as a hill or a mountain in England. So the Peak District, they might only be like about 150 feet high. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Might need to look that one up.
Well, I remember whenever I was a young kid and everything, my dad would take us on family vacations, and we would drive from Texas up through Oklahoma, and we'd go through the Arbuckle Mountains, which are like 250 foot high.
Yeah.
And he would always joke about it. He's like, yeah, they call them mountains. These aren't mountains. So basically, it's the same kind of mountain over in England as the Arbuckle Mountains are in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I can't remember the cutoff point for when it stops becoming a hill.
I don't know. I know that's where my family name is from, because the Billington name has to do with like these hills up in Lincolnshire or whatever, and it's
Lincolnshire,
Lincolnshire, whatever you want to call it.
It's not the Hobbit. He doesn't come from the Shire.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's the American in me, right?
Yeah.
But it has something to do with hills up there or whatever, and that's kind of where my name comes from. It's the land that my family owned 500-600 years ago over there, and it was to do with hills or something like that. So they were probably like 5 foot tall, and because my family's so lazy, we're like, yeah, it's a hill we don't want to climb. Yeah, it's 5 foot tall. That's too much. Let's just go to the pub.
Sledging for infants.
Exactly.
Yeah. So where was the first vacation you ever had?
The first vacation that I remember was going up north, out of Texas, back to see family in Kansas and Missouri.
All right.
It was just that typical family vacation. We're talking about the mid 80s, right? So as a kid, I'm in the back seat of the car, not in a seatbelt, not in a car seat. And I was riding in the back seat of a 1982 Cadillac Eldorado, which in the back seat had that little shelf right above the back seat. And so I would just crawl up there and lay down and take a nap. for most of the trip.
Right.
So when, family vacation was to actually go see family, it wasn't really about going anywhere cool. It was like, oh, well, let's go visit these relatives. And I did the typical, are we there yet? Are we there yet? My dad would have the map, like the old school paper map,
Right.
like laying in between him and my mom, in the bench seat in that Cadillac. And he would be looking down, even though he had driven that so many times, he still had to have that map with him.
Right.
That was the old air traffic controller part in him. He had to have that map right there so he could put his finger on it and say, okay, well, I'm going through this town. I know, my turn is up here in 60 miles, but I'm just still going to look at this on the map.
I didn't actually go on a proper vacation until I was 19. Now, I'd visited countries, playing soccer, like growing up and stuff, but really my parents, the only place they wanted to go was a place called Hunstanton, which is in East Anglia, which is on the east coast of England. And it's a beach and it's crap, for one.
Okay.
But it was probably about an hour and a half's drive away, but my dad would only ever drive 35 miles per hour, even on the highway. So it took like about 4 hours to get there. And so we'd leave about 7 o'clock in the morning, get there at 11 o'clock.
So what you're saying is it's for a normal driver an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But because he would only drive 35, it was a 4-hour trip.
And I remember like driving with him, like every person who overtook him, it'd be like maniac, effing maniac, the entire journey, that's all you'd hear.
Right, but back then, what was the speed limits on the road?
70
miles an hour.
Yeah.
And
he drove 35. Yeah.
35.
Yeah.
He'd be like, okay, well, that's the speed limit, so I'm not going to get there. Right. I'm going to drive below that, and I'm going to drive safe. Now, he probably got good gas mileage, even though back then, nobody really cared about gas mileage that much, right?
Yeah. Now, it was a day trip. Right, so it involved almost 8 hours of driving. Should have been 3 total, but 8 hours for us. But anyway, when you got to Hunstanton Beach, the big thing about Hunstanton Beach is it's more beach than actually sea, because like when the tide's out, it's like a 1.5 mile walk to the water. Right, you're standing on the beach. Now, the first part of the beach at Hunstanton, the sand's quite nice. Okay. Then you have to go through like all these pebbles and rocks for about 1/4 mile. Then there's more okayish beach. Then it gets a little bit pebbly and sharp, rocky again. Then there's almost like no beach. It's almost like dirt, and then sand, and then you get to the water. It's honestly like walking to Mordor.
That sounds like a terrible journey just to get to the water.
When you actually get to the water, you have to get about 1/2 mile out before it gets above your knees.
Okay.
Right?
So now you've walked, what, almost 2 miles?
Yeah, I wish I'd have had my Apple Watch back then, because I got in a lot of steps.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you finally got to the water, and it wasn't the cleanest water in the world, and it had a proliferation of jellyfish.
Well, okay, so back up. So why was the water so dirty?
Because it's on the coast of England.
Yeah, but I mean, they're
it's
not
English Channel, mate.
Well, yeah, but they're not drilling for oil out there. So why is the water so dirty? Just the ships driving around?
Because it's not too far away from France.
Oh, I forgot about France.
Yeah, and I think the French just like poop in the water, and it just used to drift across to us.
Yeah,
across the English Channel.
They're pouring all the wine out there and putting the dead cats out there. Yeah, so that's why it was dirty.
Yeah, so that was the only beach I'd been to, really. Now, I did get to see other beaches in Europe for a few hours on some of the, soccer trips when we had a little bit of time off, but we were, kind of restricted in what we were allowed to do.
Right, but that doesn't count as a vacation.
No.
Traveling and vacation, that's two different things.
Yeah.
You had to travel for work. You were playing soccer for work.
Yeah.
So that's not a vacation. We're talking about vacation. Mm-hmm. We're talking about just getting out of town to relax, quote unquote, because who relaxes on vacation?
Now, funnily enough, I did actually enjoy my time when I was actually at Hunstanton, because, it was the only thing which, I'd ever really known as kind of getting away to go to the seaside, as we call it in England.
Right.
And, I have good memories. I've still got some photos now. And, I enjoyed it overall. I think it was nice.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of one of those things where, my kids, their first kind of observation of the ocean, of the beach, was Galveston.
Right.
And so a lot of people say, oh, Galveston's dirty, the sand's dirty, the water's dirty, or whatever. But if that's all you know about the beach and the ocean, then what difference does it make?
Right.
The problem is then when you take them somewhere else and they see clearer water and cleaner beaches, then they don't want to go to somewhere that's so much closer and to me is much cooler because you can hop in the car and unlike your dad, I'm not going to drive 35 miles an hour from Fort Worth to Galveston. We're going to go like 85 and get there in 5 hours.
Right. I mean, I guess it's like the equivalent of growing up in New York and seeing the women there and then moving to Texas and thinking, what on earth have I been looking at for the last however many years? It's the same way with beaches, I mean, I used to think Hunstanton was awesome, but, Galveston is like 100 times better than Hunstanton.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The water was so salty as well.
Well, yeah, but it's the ocean.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
supposed to be salty.
Yeah, but this was like Dead Sea type salty.
Oh, so you got out there in the water and you couldn't go under the water. You just kind of float.
I blame the jellyfish.
Yeah.
And they weren't the nice ones either. They were those ones who like swarm together and just like sting the crap out of you for no good reason.
Are there nice jellyfish?
I think so.
Oh.
Well, I've seen the Octonauts and there's been quite a few nice jellyfish on there, so.
Yeah, but even SpongeBob didn't like jellyfish.
Did he not?
No.
Why?
No, him and Patrick always went out there and tried to catch them. They didn't like jellyfish, so I don't think there's such a thing as a nice jellyfish.
No, I think there is. I've seen some on the Octonauts, so we'll have to compare notes later on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the first proper vacation I went to was with my first girlfriend, and I was 19, so I was a bit of a loser in that respect, because that was actually my first girlfriend. I didn't start dating until I was 19.
Yeah, you kind of let that out, and I could see your look like, oh, I maybe shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, I was going to do the L over my head before I started speaking the sentence, but yeah, that was my first girlfriend, and we went to Tunisia, which is kind of like a cheaper version of Turkey. What can I say about Tunisia? Food was horrible and there were a lot of flies. Beach was all right. There were warnings against swimming in the water because for whatever reason, the locals decided that, why use the toilet at home when we can poop and pee in the water? And so you'd actually see poop floating in the water.
Well, so they did better than the people in San Francisco.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because, the people in San Francisco just do it on the street.
Right.
Yeah, which is kind of a shame.
They save the water for all the needles and stuff.
No, I think they leave the needles on the street now,
well,
too.
Yeah, but the thing is, you only need so many poops a day, whereas the needles, I think they have to do that multiple times. So there's needles everywhere they go. It's like a detective trail.
Honestly, I think it has something to do with their diet, too.
Yeah.
So maybe they're multiple poops a day.
Right. I do remember kneeing somebody in the face in Tunisia, actually.
Oh. And now, where is Tunisia?
It's I think it's close to Turkey. It's some kind of North Africa area.
East of here. More east than Louisiana.
A little bit further.
A little bit further than Louisiana.
By about 10,000 miles or something.
Oh, okay. So closer to Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So me and my girlfriend, we're in a part of the beach which wasn't actually that bad. And there were some quite big waves coming in. And my girlfriend was kind of like wading in the water. And like some of the locals were kind of swimming in the water, and they kept riding the waves in and trying to accidentally touch the white-skinned Western girls on the beach there. Yeah. And this one guy kept riding the waves and kept coming in and trying to accidentally touch my girlfriend. So I saw him go for another try, and I kind of moved her out the way so he didn't see. He was heading right towards me, and I lifted my knee up and cracked him right in the nose. I heard the crack, and there was like automatically, like, I can't tell you how much blood in the water, kind of thing. And it's actually not life imprisonment or the death penalty, but pretty bad if you assault a tourist or anything like that in the country, because that's where they get a lot of their money from, tourism. And so, there weren't any complaints or anything like that, but I did knee him into next week.
But if it was a tourist attacking another tourist, do the laws still apply?
I don't know. Probably don't get involved.
Well, yeah, but you weren't a member of that country.
No.
You weren't a citizen, so they couldn't prosecute you the same way as...
Well, no, it wasn't a tourist who was coming in at me. It's Tunisians, local Tunisians. That's what they did. They used to like to harass the Western pretty women.
Kind of like I've heard in Jamaica, they harass you a lot if you don't buy weed from them.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, same thing happens in New York.
Yeah, that's true. And I think San Francisco, they try to sell you bags of poop.
Yeah.
Jenkum. Oh, that's true.
Anybody listening, look up Jenkum, and you will regret doing so.
Yes, please do and please don't at the same time. Right. So once you know what we're talking about, you will say, I like you and I hate you at the same time that I know what this is.
But don't get drunk and follow the instructions on Jenkum.
Yes. Yeah, we do not recommend that. And as much as we like, to try to get sponsors, we do not want a Jenkum sponsor.
No.
That is one.
Yeah, we do not want... Well, no, that's not true. If they pay us some money, we'll promote them.
Okay, yeah. So we're just going to stick with the fact that Dave Matthews Band will not sponsor us, and that's still the only one we're going with.
Yeah, we'll take Jenkum.
So yeah, Dave Matthews Band, you are still on the list of people we don't want as sponsors. Literally, if you're listening to this, we will take a Jenkum sponsor over you as a sponsor.
Right. So where was the first vacation you went by yourself without your parents? Well, not by yourself, but without your parents. It wasn't like a family vacation.
Without my parents.
Have you ever been on a holiday without your parents?
Yeah, no, I have. Honestly, I'm trying to think. I guess my 8th grade field trip to Washington, D.C. That was the first time, I hopped
That's not a vacation, going to Washington, D.C.
Well, yeah, I guess I agree with you there.
That's just traveling to Washington, D.C., having to spend some time there and coming home.
So by that definition, I guess I'm going to have to go with my honeymoon.
Yeah?
That's my probably first honest vacation that, it wasn't a family-related thing. It wasn't just a quick, hey, couple hour drive, something like that. I guess it'd have to be my honeymoon.
Well, you got married in middle school, so what were you, 13 or something?
Yeah, I was 13, almost 14. Yeah. Almost 14.
Yeah.
Now, we went to Pennsylvania, we went to the Poconos, and then we spent a few days in New York City. And no, it was a good vacation. Yeah. And the sad thing, it was just after 9/11. So, you have the new... travel requirements in place and all that. And then when we were in New York, we went to the World Trade Center site when everything was still a wreck. So it kind of got to see that firsthand, but it was kind of like the pictures. That's the one frustrating thing about vacations. You see pictures of things, like you see pictures of the Grand Canyon, you see pictures of the pyramids, you see pictures of the Statue of Liberty, all these landmarks, right? And then you go and you see them in person and you realize, I think the pictures were better than seeing it in person.
Oh, yeah, definitely with the World Trade Center, because my girlfriend at the time used to run tours for international students and au pairs and stuff who came over to the States. And, she would take them around visits around the World Trade Center and all this stuff. And so I went with her a few times and, I went in the World Trade Center and that. But yeah, to me, it just looks like a couple of skyscrapers at the time. Right. It wasn't impressive. I know it was iconic and legendary.
Well, they were tall.
It wasn't impressive,
yeah.
Really.
They were tall buildings, and it was the Twin Towers, so you had two buildings right next to each other that were identical looking, basically. One had an antenna, the other one didn't, and other than that, they looked the same.
Now, the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building and stuff, they were more impressive, and they were nicer inside, but World Trade Center was just literally like going up in some office blocks.
Yeah.
The World Trade Center in Dallas is more impressive than that.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah. I had some people come over from Papua New Guinea, and I took them up in the Reunion Tower.
Who do you know in Papua New Guinea?
Oh, I know quite a few people
in
Papua New Guinea.
Who?
Jab Mesa. I'm sure he's maybe
He sounds
listening.
like a character from Star Wars.
No. I know a handful of people still in Papua New Guinea when I went over there. But we had some people come over from Papua New Guinea, and I took them up in the Reunion Tower here in Dallas, and they thought it was fantastic to go up that high. And even, the Reunion Tower really isn't that tall, but it's the tallest thing they had ever been in. You know, to look over all the skyscrapers and, you know, ride in an elevator to go up that high. I mean, that was impressive to them. Something you and I would just kind of take advantage of and say, not that big of a deal. But there are a lot of people that would say, oh, yeah, that's the only time I've done that. And that's probably a huge memory for them.
Now, is New Guinea a bit like Tatooine?
No, it's more like indoor.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very jungly over there.
Oh, wow.
And they still practice cannibalism, in fact.
Yeah.
So
you figure they're perfect it eventually.
Yeah, they're almost there. Yeah. So apparently they like dark meat more than white meat over there. So my dad and I were safe when we were over there.
Right. So I think the first holiday I actually enjoyed, I went to Spain, a place called Calella, which was a bit of a tourist trap, and it was super cheap.
Well, now how is a tourist trap cheap? Because usually the definition of a tourist trap is everything's expensive.
Yeah, but you've got to have these touristy places where people with not much money can go.
Oh, yeah.
And at that time,
because all the poor Europeans.
Yeah, I hadn't signed.
Because
my professional contract. Yet.
Right, everybody in Europe.
I didn't have much money. But
yeah, everybody in Europe's poor except like the Queen and the Beckhams.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
and Elton John.
Oh, he's European.
He's British.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. He's a knight too. He's Sir Elton John.
Yeah, is he dead? Because did we have this discussion a few podcasts ago?
No,
whether he's dead or not.
No, he's still alive.
Is he?
I think so.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure. I know Freddie Mercury's dead.
Yes, he is dead.
Yeah,
yes.
And ironically, I think Freddie Mercury and Elton John suffer from the same thing, but Elton John's still alive.
Elton John didn't get AIDS.
Oh, that's not what I was talking about.
Oh, gayism. Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, both very good musical artists, though.
Yes.
Excellent.
True.
Yeah. So, yeah, Spain, Calella. Me and two of my friends from high school went. And actually, one of the guys' his last name was Shepherd, Craig Shepherd. And the other guy, his name was Greg. And we didn't have much money when we went there. But, you know, when you go to those touristy traps, you know, in Europe, especially in like Spain, southern Spain, you know, the beer's kind of watered down and super cheap.
Really? They water down the beer?
Yeah.
I know. I've heard of watering down like cocktails,
yeah.
right?
I mean,
but how do you water down beer? I mean, you've got to be able to realize the beer is watered down.
Well, yeah, you do. I mean, it tastes like 50% water and 50% beer. So, I mean, it's not quite as weak as Bud Light, but it's getting there.
Well, I thought that's what Bud Light was.
No, it's like 80% water and 20%
like
beer.
You take Alien Ale, you know, our beer sponsor, right? And then you pour like 25% of that into a glass.
Yeah.
Then you fill 75% water. You shake it around. Then you pour it into another glass, pour like half of that out, fill 50% more water, and then maybe you get Bud Light.
No, Alien Ale, even if you dilute it at a ratio of 1 to 10, is still stronger than Bud Light.
That's probably true.
Yeah. Because Alien Ale lies on its percentage alcohol content,
yes.
We're pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, they are our sponsor, but we think it's a little bit stronger than they advertise.
It's like beer tasting vodka.
It is some fantastic stuff. That's why we love it.
God's own beer. I do remember in Calella, actually, my friend Greg, he sunburnt his ankles. He had never been to a beach before. And so he had absolutely no idea how long to lay out in the sun and sunbathe.
Oh, right.
And he did the typical British thing of not putting on any sunscreen. And he managed to burn his ankles because he laid out in the sun, no joke, for like 10 hours that first day. And the weather, I think it was like about 88. And in England, it reaches 88 about every time they replace the Pope or something. And yeah, he burnt his ankles and he had to lay, I remember, in bed for almost like the first 2 days after that. So like 3 days in was the first time he could actually get out and enjoy anything because he couldn't walk, literally. I mean, it hurt him so much. His ankles were like blistering, bubble blisters.
But he just burnt his ankles?
His ankles and his feet, yeah.
Oh,
I don't know why the rest of him didn't burn. I think he was a little bit hairy on his legs. That's why he didn't burn. But
Well, yeah, but that's typical British people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I come from. I mean, I'm not from Britain. My family's been here for years, but I'm hairy like a monkey.
Right.
And so are you. That's all part of being from, the British Isles, so to speak.
Because evolution did us a favor, because it's so bloody cold, you needed some hair to keep you warm.
Yeah, you got to have some insulation, right? So, but just like you and just like me, we don't have any hair on our ankles or our feet. So I can kind of see where that...
I don't know. I've got a couple of hairy toes. It's only on one foot, though.
I don't have any hair on my toes.
Actually, I've got 2 toes on my left foot, which are webbed.
That's weird.
It's like it tried to grow into another big toe, but then kind of quit halfway through.
Was it trying to tell you that you should try to swim across the ocean and get away from England?
Well, that's why when I swim, I go around in circles a lot, because it's webbed. I go faster on one side than the other, and I just can't remember to kind of stroke less with my left foot.
Well, that's probably why you had to play soccer and weren't on the swim team.
Well, it's just like playing with one big foot.
Yeah. There you go.
So I think I was drunk like 99% of the time I was there, so I can't really tell you anything about Kalela other than it had nice beach, the water was all right.
But it was pretty.
It was pretty-ish. I mean, pretty-ish. And that was a stage in my life where I wasn't really having any success with girls, so there was no holiday romances as such.
You always hear about those holiday romances where, maybe you're a single guy or whatever, and then you meet this woman and, they're on vacation too, and it's that one that got away.
Yeah. Well, Greg and Craig, they're a pair of losers as well, so nobody got any action. So it's,
Well, and I never met one on vacation either, because I was always dragging the wife along.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of hurts.
So, yeah, that would have been bad if I would have done that. I would have felt kind of horrible.
Unless you were looking for a sister wife.
Yeah.
Third.
Yeah. Well, we haven't vacationed in Utah yet.
Right.
So maybe if we vacation in Utah, maybe I can kind of set that up. If we convert to Mormonism or something like that.
Now, what's the worst holiday you can remember before you had kids? Because obviously when you have kids, that can turn even a nice vacation into a nightmare if they kind of a little bit unruly.
The crazy thing is, I don't remember any bad vacations before kids. Everything was kind of good. I mean, even when we went to places that we didn't necessarily like, it was still good. We made the best of it. It wasn't the complaining, are we there yet? And, all of that stuff. So I have no complaints about pre-kid vacations.
Right.
It's post-kid vacations that really suck.
Daddy, why are you trying to flatten mommy?
Yeah.
Yeah. That type of thing.
Are we there yet?
Yeah.
What are we going to do here? Blah, 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 blah. It's just a giant pain.
Right.
And, kids look back on it at least and realize, hey, those were great vacations, but they don't realize when they went to bed and dad and mom, shut the door and dad's like 13 beers in and is saying, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to do this again. Just please get me home. That's why we're going to drive 13 hours straight to get back home tomorrow, and we're not stopping, and we're going to do like F1 pit stops when we get to the gas station because I've got to get home. That's what happens.
Yeah. Now, I did actually enjoy the vacations I've been on with my son, but the sun shines out of his backside, so that's a little bit different. But, I have been on vacations with friends before who have brought their kids along, and even other people's kids annoy me on vacation.
So is it they brought their kids and you didn't have your kids?
I didn't have my kid at that time.
Yeah, so it's like, well, wait a second. I thought this was a vacation kind of for adults, but you decided to bring your kids along. And
well, they kind of paid for it, so I don't really complain about it.
Yeah, but they still kind of ruin it.
Yeah.
So, okay, in your example, right, you're coming along for the trip. They paid for it, but they brought their kids. Doesn't it almost ruin it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It did ruin it, yeah. Because everything had to be centered around their kids the entire time. And they were those type of parents who wouldn't drink around their kids.
Right.
And they didn't want you drinking around their kids either.
Yeah. So they're ruining it for you, and they're actually ruining it for themselves.
And this was in the days before Delta 8 existed, so you couldn't even kind of like secretly be happy.
It's like, oh, hang on, let me go take a vitamin.
Yeah, let me go take a gummy vitamin and I'll be super happy in about 45 minutes.
And then you could say, hey, Timmy, here, take a vitamin too, so maybe you'll calm down.
Yeah, it might calm your ass down, mate.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the best holidays, but also one of the worst holidays I had was in a place called Blackpool. It's in the northwest of England, not far away from Manchester.
Okay.
It's big tourist hotspot for people who live in the UK, and for some reason people who visit from Europe like to go and see Blackpool as well. There's a tower in Blackpool which has the really original name called Blackpool Tower, and it's called a tower, but I literally have seen higher trees than the tower.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about the redwood forest in California. I'm talking about, like 30 foot, 40 foot trees, and it's like, this is a tower. I mean, now it's probably been turned into like a cell phone tower or something.
Yeah, but that literally sounds like a tourist trap.
Well, it was supposed to be, I think, a replica of the Eiffel Tower in France, right? Now, if you've seen the Eiffel Tower, it just looks like an electricity pylon in real life. It's crap. But this was a kind of 1/3 to scale crap.
I got you. Have you heard about the skyscraper in Wichita Falls?
No.
Okay, so this is a fantastic story. So just a little bit up north of where we record, there's a town called Wichita Falls, Texas. And you think about, okay, Wichita Falls, yes, there's a waterfall there, and it's terrible to see. It's literally maybe 30 foot tall. It's horrible when you see the Wichita Falls. You're like, oh, wow, I came here to see that. But what will disappoint you even more is the skyscraper that they have in Wichita Falls. So some dude, I can't remember his name, and whoever's listening to this, seriously, just look this up. This guy passed this deal through the Wichita Falls government to build a skyscraper in Wichita Falls at this ridiculously cheap price. But they didn't pay attention to the scale on the skyscraper. So it's only 40 foot tall, and they thought it was going to be like 400 foot tall. So he got all this money and built this real short building that has 4 stories, but the stories are like, super short in this. And the building still stands today. And it's basically a huge joke to Wichita Falls, Texas, that they let this slip through.
Now, I didn't know there was actually a waterfall in Wichita Falls.
There is.
Because I've been there a few times. I went there when I was coaching a few soccer teams, and a couple of my parents were from Wichita Falls, so we ended up going up there doing a couple of tournaments. Now, I'll tell you who would be impressed by the waterfall in Wichita Falls.
Eric?
No, my girlfriend, because when we were in Colorado last week, she pointed and went, look, a waterfall. And I turned round, and no joke, it looked like somebody's sink was overflowing. It was like maybe about 5 foot off the ground. It wasn't exactly a deluge of water coming off it. And I said, I don't know technically if that counts as a waterfall.
Yeah.
But, so she'd probably be impressed with that.
Yeah.
Waterfall in Wichita Falls.
If she was impressed with that one, she would really be impressed with Wichita Falls, because I've got a picture somewhere, and maybe we'll throw it on the Instagram with a couple of buddies of mine from my old motorcycle riding club, that I saw the Wichita Falls. I'm like, really? That's what this is? I mean, it's literally like maybe 30, 40 foot tall. It is nothing to drive whatever it is about 2 hours from here to see. But yeah, Wichita Falls is such a disappointment in a city. And I hate to say that about a Texas city, especially as close to Wichita Falls as we are. But you know what? Wichita Falls, you're a disappointment.
Well, my girlfriend still points at horses and cows when we drive past them, so she'll probably be quite enamored by it.
Oh, well, yeah, but she is from Ohio.
Well, actually, she was born in the same place you were.
Chicago?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
South Chicago.
Oh, okay.
She made it through the birth without getting shot.
Yeah. Oh, good for her.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, then she moved
and I was born in a county hospital too. I was born in Cook County Hospital in Chicago. I mean, that's a dangerous hospital.
Yeah, then she moved to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
and then somewhere else, and then to Texas. So.
Yeah. Well, I see one of the reasons why I like watching ER all the time is I keep telling the wife, hey, that's Cook County Hospital. That's where I was born. That's why it's one of my favorite shows.
And that never gets old, I'm sure.
No, it never gets old. Even though I moved to Texas when I was 2 months old and I don't know anything about Chicago, but I know, hey, that's the hospital I was born in. Never been back, but there you go.
Well, one great thing about Blackpool for tourists from like France is I think after Paris, it has the highest proportion of prostitutes per square mile than anywhere in Europe.
Even more than Amsterdam? I thought Amsterdam had a lot of prostitutes.
Well, I think that's legalized there. So technically they're kind of sex workers and professionals. So they're not really called prostitutes.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're figuring out a way to adjust those metrics.
Oh, I guess I did go on an early vacation as such then to France, because I actually went there for about 4 or 5 days on a school trip. So I guess it's kind of like a holiday. And Paris was the most disappointing place I've been to in my life.
Yeah, I've never been to Paris.
Dirty.
Of course, I've never been to Europe, but tell me about Paris, because I think Paris is the ultimate tourist trap. I've always thought that.
Well, the Eiffel Tower, like I said, it just looks like an electricity pylon.
Right.
I drive past sometimes bigger electricity pylons than the Eiffel Tower is. Outside of about maybe 12 blocks, Paris is like dirty as all get out. It's like, again, San Francisco, but it's just, oh my goodness, is homeless, poop, drugs, prostitutes. You get mugged if you go certain places. Everything costs like about, $20 for a bagel, and everybody smokes everywhere.
Yeah,
French people are very, very rude as well.
Yeah, but smoking is still a big thing in Europe.
Well, yeah, France and Italy especially.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we basically got it in America now to where you can't smoke anywhere. But over in Europe, you can still smoke everywhere.
Now, in England, they have stopped smoking in, I think, most bars and pubs and stuff. Now, obviously, small town, village, pubs, you've probably still got smoking in and stuff. But yeah, France, I remember just like going into a restaurant. Like, obviously it was a group of us because it was a school trip, but they kind of divided us up and sent us to different places to go eat with a teacher. And I remember we were sitting next to a table and there must have been about 6 guys, I guess, businessmen, whatever. And they were all smoking constantly throughout the meal. And I mean, like the entire place was just like a cloud of smoke. It's just, and the food was, I don't know, French food is not anything to write home about. Unless you're writing home saying the food's crap.
Right. And here's the weird thing. I spent a lot of years of my life smoking cigarettes. And I kind of regret it now. But, it is what it is. It's all done. And I'm glad I don't smoke anymore. But the one thing I could never do is smoke a cigarette while I had food in front of me.
Right.
I could not take a bite of food.
That is a huge Italian thing.
And take a drag of a cigarette.
While they eat. Yeah, they smoke while they eat. They say it brings out the flavor in the food. But
I don't believe that. No, I don't believe that. I don't want cigarette smoke around me when I was eating, even when I was smoking. And one of the things that finally got me kind of away from smoking was, and you were one of them, was that, I'd drag people to a bar and say, hey, we're going to go to this bar because I can smoke. And then you'd be like, I don't want to be around all the cigarettes. I'm like, well, you're not smoking. But then you realize even if you're not smoking, you walk out smelling like a cigarette, which is tough. So if I go in somewhere where there's a bunch of cigarette smoke around, I think to myself, well, this sucks. I either need to light up a cigarette or I need to get out of here. And I'd rather get out of there than be around all the cigarette smoke.
Yeah, another thing I found in France is that people love to clear their throat and their nose during meals. You're sitting next to this, I guess it was a couple in their, I don't know, 60s maybe. And the woman, I don't know if she had a cold or something, but all you heard like throughout the meal and the table, she was probably sat maybe about as close as you are now, so maybe about 2-3 feet. Okay. And all you heard was throughout the meal.
While she's eating.
And then she was coughing, having a coughing fit. And then at the end of the cough, obviously she was coughing up the phlegm, going, and then spitting into a handkerchief the whole time.
She's spitting into the handkerchief.
Yeah.
Like all the phlegm and everything else that she's hacking up.
Yeah.
And then I'm guessing once she's done with that, just taking another bite of food.
Yeah. She's still smoking though.
Oh, man.
So yeah, that was kind of crap. So no, I would not recommend anybody to go to Paris. You can cross that off your bucket list unless you're going to go watch, I don't know, like a soccer game. Go watch Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, but
play. But other than that, I wouldn't bother.
Okay,
going to
so
Paris.
what is the name of that bridge? You know, that Lover's Bridge or whatever that they had in Paris, where you take the lock. You know, you buy a lock and you write your name on it, and it's like, oh, you know, the wolf loves the shepherd, and then you put the lock on the bridge and you throw the key in the river or whatever.
I can't remember. I have heard about it though.
Yeah, but they got rid of that deal. Yeah, you can't do that anymore. They cut all the locks off of there, and they won't let anybody do that anymore. So to me, it's like, okay, the Eiffel Tower, seen enough pictures, don't really need to see a tower.
Right.
Maybe I want to take my wife over there, do the lock thing. Oh, we got rid of that? Okay, so now I'm not going to do that. French people are rude. French people are going to surrender and
funny.
Yeah, run away. I don't really want to eat a baguette. So why do I want to go to France?
No, honestly, the dogs bark funny. They bark in a French accent. It's like, back.
Yeah.
Like that.
So France's
Crap.
tourism business has got to suck
actually,
now.
I will say, like, Lyon and Marseille in France, really nice. And if you go southern France, it's super, super nice. Middle of France is completely peasants.
Well, now, where's Paris at in France?
Northern.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of like you go through the channel thing and you pop out the other side and you're in
or you
Paris.
go across the ferry and land in Calais in France and then like catch a train or some crap. Get on a bus.
Gotcha.
Get on a bus, get on a smoking bus.
Yeah.
Die
Because
of cancer before you get to Paris.
yeah, because everybody's smoking over there.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's the trashiest place you've been on vacation?
That is super easy. New Orleans.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
New Orleans, even though it's kind of an interesting town, I've been there, I think 3 times. It stinks. You know, when you cross the border, the eastern border of Texas into Louisiana, I encourage anybody that lives in Texas, if you drive to Louisiana, when you cross over the river, just roll the windows down because Louisiana has a smell. Louisiana stinks. And New Orleans is the armpit of that stink when you get into there. And even though there's a lot of culture and a lot that you can see in New Orleans, that town is filthy. It is filthy, it stinks, it's dirty, and you really only need to go and see it one time. And by the way, you don't need to go during Mardi Gras and go with all that mess because it's really not worth it. It's, once again, a tourist trap because all the debauchery and everything goes on constantly in Bourbon Street. But it's not worth it.
You just saw because you didn't get many beads for showing your tits. Or...
Well, I got a lot of beads.
Yeah.
2 of the 3 times I went.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
third time.
Well, the third time I was with my wife, and there were people constantly going up to her trying to offer her beads, saying, "Hey, would you like a set of beads?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm standing right here next to my wife. Are you seriously asking her to show you her boobs?"
And not you.
Yeah, because
that's
I don't.
insulting.
Yeah, I never get to see them.
Right.
You know, beads or no beads or whatever I can offer, I never get to see them.
Right.
And this random dude just comes up and says, "Hey, you know, here's a $2, you know, plastic beads. Show me your boobs." Yeah, it's terrible.
Do you want my username and password to our OnlyFans site so you can catch a glimpse of them? Or...
Oh, that would be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it? No,
I do have your username and password for your girlfriend's OnlyFans site, so I'll share that with you if you'll give me yours for my wife.
I think the subscription prices per month are pretty similar. So
yeah. I mean, I pay like $100 a month for your girlfriend.
Oh wow, yeah, it's not that much.
I knew I was getting ripped off.
I just remembered a nice place in France, Montpellier. It's on the south coast of France. That was a really nice vacation I had there because I actually stayed there after playing a soccer tournament there. I stayed there for about 6 days after. It was really, really nice. Expensive, but really, really nice.
Well,
not many French people there, amazingly.
Okay, but when you say expensive, though, expensive comparatively to what?
Well, I think when I went, it was 1990. And I think the hotel cost was about, I want to say, £350 a night. So about $700 a night back 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's expensive.
Yeah, but I wasn't paying for it, so I don't really care. But
no, you weren't paying for it. But, what's expensive to one is it may be different to another. I mean, I told you before we hit record on the podcast, my daughter is turning 18 tomorrow and decided that she's going to go up to Wisconsin from DFW on Saturday and bought a round trip plane ticket for $250. That's pretty cheap. Now, no one wants to go to Wisconsin. So if she didn't have a friend up there, she wasn't going to run up to Wisconsin. No offense to our Wisconsin listeners, but who the hell wants to go to Wisconsin?
Well, I would, to go and get another Wiesler to replace Mia, because that's where they're from, Wisconsin.
Really?
Yeah. So she wants to bring me back another Wiesler or two.
Oh.
Hopefully she'll get back before my girlfriend listens to this podcast, because she told me we can't have any more dogs. But
okay, well, maybe we need to make a deal after we hit stop on this recording, and then maybe I can pay for the trip of getting you a dog.
Yeah.
So you do realize that dog's going to cost you at least $250, so I can cover the plane ticket.
The thoroughbred ones are about $2,000, I think.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell her to get one of the gimpy ones that we can get for like a couple $100. Then I'll charge.
There are gimpy Wieslers because they're very carefully bred.
Yeah, but I can guarantee you, I'll find the gimpy one, and then we're talking about like $500. You get a good deal. I get the trip paid for, and then you get a new dog.
You do understand I'm going to be able to tell if it's a greyhound, right?
No, I'll just dye the hair.
Ginger.
Yeah.
Because Wieslers are ginger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I'll fool you.
One of my friend's daughters turned 18 about 2 weeks ago, and where were we? I think we were watching a soccer game, one of the first opening Euro 2020 games, which is being played in 2021. And he said, yeah, my daughter turns 18 on Saturday, and I've been struggling with it. It's one of those things, when a father's got a daughter, she's 18, so now she's legal. And I said, well, does she have a boyfriend? He goes, well, I'm not talking about sex. I'm worried now that she's allowed to vote and she's as dumb as a box of socks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's my daughter too. I mean, she's intelligent, but she's not intelligent.
Right.
And so, yeah. I mean, we're introducing another voter into this world that doesn't know what the hell she's talking about.
Yeah, gets all her information from TikTok.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram.
Right.
That's basically all the information she needs to decide what she believes.
Now, what's the best vacation you've been on? Now, I know you said since you've had kids, they've all been a bit of a struggle, but
I'm going to have to go back, even though when I was in Papua New Guinea, it kind of sucked, but I did spend a few days in Australia. And those few days I spent in Australia were really cool. And I know we have some, a handful of listeners in Australia.
Well, my oldest brother lives in Australia.
Yeah.
He listens.
I love Australia.
Yeah.
The craziest thing that happened to me in Australia, to be honest with you, was when I went into a pub in Australia. I was 18 when I was there. So that was legal drinking age in Australia. So I went into a pub. I didn't say a word. Literally, I did not open my mouth. I walked in and everybody turned around and like, oh, look at the Yank that's here, without speaking without anything, they knew I was an American.
Oh yeah, we could spot American tourists a mile off in England.
Yeah.
You could spot the French
I
ones,
was
you could
shocked.
spot the Spanish, and you could spot the Germans and the Americans.
Yeah,
Those were always the easiest ones.
But
to
it
spot.
was shocking as an American that I'm looking around at these people and they look a lot like me. But they knew I was an American when I walked in. It's still to this day kind of shocking to me that they just could look at me and know I wasn't Australian. I was an American. And honestly, I mean, I didn't have like a shirt on that said Australia, like a tourist. I was just dressed in a t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops and everything when I walked in. But they knew immediately that I was an American.
Mm-hmm. Was it because your clothes cost more than $30?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
The Australians aren't the most stylish people.
Yeah.
Outside of Kylie Minogue, I don't know if they've ever given us anybody with any kind of style.
I will tell you this, though. After I got over the fact that they said, that I was a Yank, they treated me really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't spend a dime in that place. They bought everything for me. And it's kind of like a lot of people do to you. They just wanted to hear me talk. Like you would do an Australian here in America. It's like, oh, I just want to hear you talk or whatever. They wanted to hear me talk. They knew I was from Texas based off my voice and like, oh, yeah, you're from Texas. And, and they do that. Oh, you got guns and you ride horses. I'm like, yes, I have like 900 horses and 500 pistols. And that's all I do all day long is just ride around on my horse and shoot my guns in the air because that's what we do in Texas.
Well, that's what most of my English friends thought, and actually relatives before I moved over to Texas. They were like, so you're going to get a horse? I said, I don't know, maybe. I mean, I already had guns. I was one of the few people, well, I say few, there's actually over 1 million people in England who have registered guns, but...
Yeah, but you should have also told them, well, I'm pretty sure when I moved to Texas, they just issued me a horse.
Yeah, and a gun.
Yeah,
at the time.
And a gun.
Yeah, at the airport.
Yes.
Yeah. Even before you get through TSA clearance.
Well, the TSA just says, hey, we confiscated these guns, so now that you're here, hey, you can have this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This came from a gangbanger. Don't use it more than twice or it'll
backfire. Exactly. It's a barter system.
Right. I think the best vacation I've ever been on was Hawaii. Now, technically, that was the honeymoon with my son's mum. And Xander was actually in the womb at that time. So technically, my son has been to Hawaii.
Right.
Yeah. And no, that was good. We went all-inclusive holiday there. Well, honeymoon there. Flew first class. And that was really great. Enjoyed every day of that vacation. Really nice. Can't be bettered, I don't think. If I could go back anywhere, actually, or go anywhere, that would actually be my first choice because that was pretty much perfect.
Now, where in Hawaii?
It was the main island. And I'm just trying to remember the name of where we were.
The big island.
Yeah, the big island. Yeah.
Well, that's called Hawaii, isn't it?
Yeah, but I know, but it's called different names in different parts of it. It's not just, the whole thing's not just called Hawaii.
No, but I thought the big island was called Hawaii.
Well, it is, but there's different parts of the island are called different names.
Like
mate.
counties?
There's different resorts.
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean.
Well, because you have like Maui and Oahu and all that's in Hawaii. But I thought the big island was called Hawaii.
It might be, yeah. But I was trying to remember the name of the resort.
Oh,
but I
got you.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sober a lot of the time, especially arriving there and leaving, which probably affected my ability to be able to remember what the name of the place was.
Well, not
we
only
flew first class, so it was like free drinks all the way.
Exactly, and not only
long flight,
because the wife at the time couldn't drink, so you were drinking for two.
I was drinking I was drinking for three actually.
Yeah,
I was drinking with Xander as well.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when I took my wife up to Boston, I asked for a little bit of bourbon and some ginger ale. And I said, I just want to mix this up. And I was flying first class with the wife. And no kidding, they brought me a glass full of bourbon.
Oh, yeah, that happened in Hawaii. I asked for I think it's just like Jack and Coke. And they gave me a glass. And I took a sip of it. And I was like, wow, is there any Coke in this? And then he brought over a literal can of Coke and said, here's the Coke.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, God love American Airlines when I've flown first class. I mean, when you're in first class in American Airlines, they treat you right.
Yeah.
They still do. Even post-COVID, that's still the only way to fly. And I had to fly before in coach, and then I flew back first class because I got to upgrade. And, I mean, flying coach really sucks. I mean, it sucked before, but now it sucks even worse. But first class still sucks compared to what first class used to be.
Right.
But that's basically the only way to fly. So, you know what? If you're going to take a vacation, seriously, spring the money and just go ahead and fly first class to really enjoy yourself.
I haven't flown coach, I don't think, in like maybe about 9 or 10 years. I've only flown first class since Hawaii. I just can't go in coach.
Yeah, it just sucks.
I don't want my knees up my nose. I don't want to sit next to somebody who stinks. I don't want to sit next to somebody who's half of their arse is in my seat.
Right.
You know.
Can't stand it just absolutely sucks. And it's not worth it because you're supposed to be on vacation. You're supposed to be enjoying yourself. Spend the money. Just spend the money and do it right.
Yeah. Now, what's on your bucket list in terms of vacations, places you haven't been?
You know, you bring up Hawaii.
Yeah.
I'd kind of like to see Hawaii. I haven't been to Hawaii. I haven't been to Alaska. I'd kind of like to see Hawaii. I think I'd be okay if I miss Alaska. You know,
I think I would. I think I always wanted to go to Alaska. You know, see polar bears, see some wildlife.
Right.
But I think I'd grow tired of it after 2 days.
Yeah, if I miss it, I miss it. I'm not going to be bothered by it. You know, I'd like to go to England. You know, and I know saying that to you, you're like, no, you don't really want to go. But you know what? I'd like to go to England.
For historical reasons, you'd like to go and trace your family and all that
exactly.
stuff.
You know, that's why I want to go to England, and I'd kind of like to see that. I'd like to go to the Holy Land, to be honest with you. I'd like to see Jerusalem.
Yeah.
I'd like to kind of do the walk around there and
see if we get the Jerusalem syndrome.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, because I think I've got like 50% chance I might get the Jerusalem
It's going to
syndrome.
be psychosomatic now because we know so much about the Jerusalem syndrome. We'll get it halfway across the Atlantic.
I mean, I'm going to be putting on the toga on the airplane on the way there.
Actually, when you fly to Israel from here, do you go across the Pacific or at the Atlantic? I can't remember which way's fastest to get there.
I'm pretty sure it's Atlantic.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. But I'd kind of like to see the Holy Land.
Yeah.
You know, that's one that I think would be really cool to see. That honestly, I don't think the pictures do justice. I've seen the pictures of like the pyramids in, you know, Cairo. And you see the Great Pyramid and all that. And then you see the other pictures on the internet where it's like, oh, and then if you flip around this way, you realize, you know, the city's right behind here and it's not really that cool looking.
Not exciting at all. Not the ones in Egypt, anyway.
Right. And so I constantly look at those things and I say, you know, I'm good with never seeing that. But to me, the Holy Land would be really cool to just actually be there. And you see so many pictures, whether it's, you know, the normal media, whether it's just researching it on the internet, it's all kind of the same pictures. You know what you're going to see. But to me, that would be kind of cool to just actually really be there and, you know, put your hand on the Wailing Wall and see some of the things with, you know, the Temple Mount and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and all that stuff. I would love to actually walk around Jerusalem for like a week.
Yeah.
And yes, get the Jerusalem syndrome.
I think I'd like
And then I'd have to call you and you would have to take me out of the mental institution because I'd probably get the Jerusalem syndrome.
I think I'd like to see India, but only as part of a guided tour. I don't think I'd want to be let loose there myself. Now, obviously not at the moment because they're drinking cow urine and covering themselves in cow dung to get rid of COVID. But once that settles down, I think I'd like to go on a guided tour, visit some of our fans in India, of which we have a lot. So, you know.
Now, I could see that. I mean, there's a couple other things like Petra, Jordan would be kind of cool to see. If you go to Petra with that little temple that's carved in the side of the mountain that was from Indiana Jones. But once again, It's like, okay, well, I've seen the movie, I've seen the pictures, I know I'm going to be disappointed. You know, that's where I hesitate with a lot of things. It's like we talked about just earlier in this podcast about Washington, D.C. It's kind of cool to see that stuff up front, but then when you get there, you realize a lot of this is very disappointing.
Yeah.
When you see it, because we live in this information society now with all of the internet and the Google Map tours of everything. You don't really have to be there to see what all this stuff has to offer. But I think Jerusalem is that one that the pictures will not do it justice.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the atmosphere obviously is a big thing there. Whereas, like, you know, a lot of countries, you go somewhere, it's more as an aesthetic as opposed to, you know, a more sensory experience.
Right.
You know. But yeah, no, I'd definitely like to go there. I think I would like to go on a safe tour of South America, see Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, but, you know, not get kidnapped, raped, and shot and that kind of stuff.
True. Yeah. I mean, if I was going to go there, I wouldn't want to have any of that done to me.
Now, I've never been to Mexico. You've been to Mexico, right?
I have been to Mexico.
Now your wife's been to Mexico, even though she's...
Well, my wife went to Mexico with me for the second time.
Right.
She went with her father one time also, but just to resorts.
Yeah.
She went to Cancun with my father-in-law and then went to Puerto Vallarta.
Now, the only reason I say that is obviously, as most of our listeners know, the shepherd's wife is actually Mexican or of Mexican heritage as such.
Of Mexican descent, born in Texas, but yes, of Mexican descent.
Can say hola and gracias, and that's it.
Yes. Yeah. And when we go into a Mexican restaurant in Texas, I speak more Mexican than she does. Right.
Okay. Well, let's finish off and tell people about our most recent vacations of last week. And you can explain to people how you broke your toe before.
Oh, we're going to bring that up, are we? So I went on vacation this past week in Destin, Florida. So we actually left Fort Worth, Texas, and drove to Biloxi, Mississippi, stayed the night at the Palace Casino Resort there. Nice place, a little overpriced, but it was okay. Don't eat the food there. The food sucks. Sorry, Palace Casino. You need to step up your game. I mean, the food sucked. So we left there, and then we went to Destin. And we spent a few days in Destin, and it was nice. I wish I wouldn't have went, but it was still nice. And so we were walking up the steps, and I had a crate full of all the beach toys that my kids were playing with. And I'm wearing flip-flops. My flip-flops are wet. Of course, the steps were made of wood, and everybody's walking up the steps. They're wet, and boom, sure enough, broke my toe. And that really sucked. So it made that, last piece of the vacation, really kind of suck. So yeah, I broke my toe on the steps and, drove myself home, and I drove straight through from Destin all the way back home, and it was about 13 hours, but it was worth it when I got back to the great state of Texas.
Now, if you weren't so lazy, breaking your big toe could be quite inconvenient.
True.
Yeah, because people use them to walk around on and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I don't walk that much.
No, exactly. Just to the car and to the house and stuff. Now,
you went to where last
Colorado.
week?
Went to the Rocky Mountain bit first. As I mentioned, my girlfriend did see a waterfall in parenthesis. We went to see her brother and her cousins, who we've actually had on the show, the two shaman, Vic and Kent. Love
Vic
you guys.
And Kent, yeah.
Met
well, that's cool that you went actually out there and went to see them.
Yeah, they're super, super cool. And met another one of her relatives named Aunt Kathy, who is one of the most awesome individuals on the planet. I tell you, if she was much, much younger, I'd actually marry her, because she was such a funny person and a buzz to be around. Absolutely no filter whatsoever on her.
Nice.
But like on July 4th, and I think she's like, crap, she must be in her 70s, but on July 4th, she was still up at like 2:00 in the morning, like drinking and singing and dancing. So
wow.
I mean, she's a
Now,
blast.
is she a shaman also?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but she's hilariously funny. So yeah, that was it. But no, I enjoyed it. Went for 8 days, had a lot of nice walks around some mountains, got out of breath, ate a lovely curry in Colorado.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Yeah, I did.
Because there's no such thing as lovely curry.
Lovely, mate. It's perfect. It was
No.
Oh, what was it? It was a Himalayan curry.
No. Still not lovely.
No, it was.
No, there's no such thing. Well, I know we have a picture of you, standing up there on the mountaintop with the
rocks.
Yeah, with the Wolf and the Shepherd t-shirt on, which was cool. And I know we talked about this before we started this recording, but I don't think we can do a podcast about big rocks.
We can.
Are we going to?
No. Well,
Gotcha.
actually, we might, because I actually did look up. There's lots of stories about big rocks, which are actually pretty good. Like, there's these ones which kind of keep moving in the desert, and nobody knows how and why they move.
Oh, yeah, that's
There's
right.
ones where, I mean, if you take like, I don't know, even those like heads on Easter Island, wherever it is, and then they did sonic stuff, and like there's a whole body underneath the ground as well as the heads, and they're not sure how they did that. So no, I think there's actually quite a few stories we could do on big rocks, actually.
Yeah.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably more interesting than this one. But,
Yeah. And with all that said, thanks for tuning into this episode of The Wolf and the Shepherd, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wolf and the Shepherd podcast. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, thewolfandtheshepherd.com, to your friends and colleagues. And please leave us a positive review on iTunes when you get a chance. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for additional content. Join us next time for another episode of The Wolf and the Shepherd.